Next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Jeremy Norton.
You just stand right there. Raise your right hand. You swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, you can just lay the folder on the table there. And if you could have a seat.
Thank you.
And before you begin, if you could, first of all, if you could pull the microphone up a little bit. It's not very flexible, but there we go.
Is that all right?
Perfect.
Good.
Would you start off by stating your name and spelling each of your names?
Jeremy Norton, Jeremy Norton.
Ms. Aldridge.
Should I remove the mask?
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have asked you that.
Thank you very much.
Please. That's appreciated.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Where do you work?
I work for Minneapolis Fire Department. Currently, I'm assigned to Fire Station number 17.
And what's your title?
My title?
Yes.
I am a captain.
And how long have you been a captain with the Minneapolis Fire Department?
I promoted to captain in 2007. 2013 to 14 and 15, I was a battalion chief, and I demoted to captain in 2017.
And how long have you been with the fire department in total?
Since 2000, so 21 years.
Have you served in a variety of positions over that period of time?
I was a firefighter from 2000 until 2007, captain from 2007 until 2014, battalion chief 214 to 216, and captain again 216 until the present.
And what's your educational background? What did you do in terms of training to become a firefighter in the first instance?
When I started, I applied in 1998. The department, once one was hired, the department provided all of our training: EMT basic, hazmat, and then firefighter 1 and 2.
So maybe you could just describe a little bit what those things are.
It was 21 years ago.
When you say EMT
right.
basic 1 and 2, what does that mean?
We are given training to the EMT basic level. Now to apply, one needs to already be an EMT. That required classroom training as well as hands-on training, and then passing the National Registry EMT test, and then becoming a licensed EMT. We can have continuing education to maintain our certification, and that is every 2 years we have to recertify, both for the state of Minnesota, and then we have the option to maintain a national certification level. The firefighting was coursework designed and delivered by the fire department, and that also included the hazmat training.
Okay. Hazmat training sounds interesting, but is it just one subspecialty of the trainings that you go through?
It is, yes, it is a subsection,
okay.
Essentially.
I'm going to circle back to the EMT part of it.
Yes,
are you is it a licensure? Are you a licensed EMT or a certified EMT through your job as a firefighter?
I believe it is a certification.
Okay. So are you currently certified as an EMT?
Yes, ma'am. It is one of the conditions of employment.
All right. And are you up to date on all of those certification requirements?
Yes, ma'am, to my knowledge.
And again, based on what you were describing for training for firefighters, is that part of the sort of standard training that all firefighters get? Meaning, are they all EMTs in Minneapolis?
In Minneapolis, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm going to get back to your day-to-day as a captain with the Minneapolis Fire Department. What are your job duties?
To which level? I mean, simply put, I'm in charge of maintaining the care and treatment and training of my crew, our equipment, and our station. which is broad. But then within that, I'm in charge of ensuring that we uphold city rules, regulations, have appropriate interactions with the public, work well with other agencies, maintain our training. I'm in charge of all documentation and records. And then on all of our calls, I'm in charge of the overall safety and well-being of our crew and ensuring that we act appropriately.
So, fair to say you're in a leadership position.
That would be affirmative.
And do you still, despite being, I guess, a supervisor or in leadership, do you still respond to calls as well?
Yes, ma'am. And as a crew, we work together.
Okay. And that's still part of your day-to-day, responding to calls?
Yes.
What portion of your work as a Minneapolis Fire Department employee is medical in nature? Do you respond to a lot of medical calls? Does fire respond to a lot of medical calls?
The number that I've seen for the department and then for nationally would be about 80% of our work is medical in nature.
So, any of us who assume that firefighters just fight fires, is that not the case?
No, you've been watching the wrong shows.
But you said 80% medical.
That is what statistics show, yes, ma'am.
So the vast majority of your job is responding to medical calls as opposed to fighting fires.
That is correct.
What types of medical calls do you respond to? Could you give some examples of the types of things you do?
Certainly. The simplest way would be anything from birth through post-death that anyone calls 911 about. We will respond with either in concert with or ahead of or to support the paramedics.
So is it common for you to work with them in your job?
Absolutely.
And why is that?
Why do we work with them?
Yeah, why is there this, what's the need to work together?
The paramedics are higher trained. They have a higher level of standard of care. They have more skills they possess. Their schooling is longer. But the idea would be an emergency medical response that if something is a life or death issue, having an EMT arrive with equipment, an AED, an oxygen mask, any of our other tools, we can provide care for someone who is in critical condition until the paramedics arrive, and then they can take over to a higher level, and we support them.
And I think you just used the term AED. Can you just describe what that is?
It is what would be called a heart starter, the automatic. I'm going to botch the letters right now, so I'll just say it is the heart start. It is what is used when someone is in cardiac arrest.
And are you, as an employee of the fire department, do you carry that type of equipment, or are you able to assist with that type of thing?
Yes, ma'am, both. We do carry it on our rigs. It is part of our standard complement, and I can use anyone I find in this building.
Okay. I'm going to direct your attention to May 25th of last year.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you on duty as a captain with the Minneapolis Fire Department on that date?
I was.
And did you respond to a call that evening?
Could you say that again?
Did you respond to a call that evening?
We responded to several, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And specifically with respect to the area of Cup Foods, was there a call that you initially responded to that location for?
Yes, ma'am.
So maybe you could, if you could, please just describe what was the nature of the call that you were initially responding to?
We were dispatched initially code 2, which is a non-emergency response at, I believe, 8:30 p.m., give or take a couple seconds. And we were given very little information. I believe it said assist paramedics, perhaps, but just said engine 17, code 2, either 38th in Chicago or 3759 Chicago Cup Foods. And so, do you want me to explain more?
So let me just stop you right there. And I'll just ask a follow-up question. How did that information come to you? In other words, how did that call initially come into your fire department for your station?
The majority of calls will come in through central dispatch. So the they control how the station will open up, meaning the radio and the lights will come on, and then there are signifying tones that indicate generally the nature of the call, and then on top of that, the dispatch will provide whatever information they have as to the nature of the call.
So, with respect to the evening of May 25th, you said around 8:30. What were you in the station at that time?
Yes, ma'am. We were inside.
And did you hear some particular tone that alerted you to this code 2?
Yes, it's the standard. The lights come on, the speakers click on with an audible click, and then there's two short tones, kind of staccato, and then followed by the dispatch announcing where we were going.
And does that come over your speaker system?
Yes, ma'am.
So it was at that time you were aware that it was a code 2 and the location where you were going. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you proceed to that location?
We did.
Did you get any other information about the call, either en route or at some other time?
Yes, ma'am.
And go ahead. What was that?
Shortly after leaving the station, dispatch came over the radio. At this point, it's our rig radio, and stated engine 17, code 3, which is red lights and sirens, emergency response.
So when you heard code 3, does that mean the call was elevated at that point? Meaning code 3 is more serious than code 2?
Affirmative.
Did you have any other information about that or the reason for that?
I believe the only information that we had on our screen initially was code 2 for one with mouth injury, I believe.
Okay.
And then it was updated.
And then when you say updated, was it just then a code 3?
Affirmative.
Without any supplemental information as to why?
No, ma'am, I don't believe so.
Okay. So ultimately, did you respond to the area of Cup Foods or 30th in Chicago?
Yes.
And what did you do when you arrived there?
The rig stopped. My partner and I got off the rig, and we looked around for a patient.
And when you got there, what did you see?
There were several police squads, one Park Police, I believe, and two or three Minneapolis police cars that I remember parked in the vicinity in the area. A couple officers were standing on the street, and a handful of people were outside.
Was there an ambulance there at the time that you were there?
No, ma'am.
And were you able to identify a patient upon arrival?
No, ma'am, there was no one on the street.
So what did you do next?
I basically went clockwise around our rig. I spoke briefly with one police officer, and then we went into the store.
And did you come into contact with anybody in the store?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was the nature of that? What happened in the store?
Could you be more specific, please?
Sure. Well, upon entering the store, did you interact with anybody who was in the area, who had been in the area?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. We spoke, as I said, I spoke to one police officer as I descended the rig, came around through a crowd of maybe 6 or 7 people who were at the mouth of the store and in the kind of the vestibule or entryway, and then I went into the store still looking for a patient.
Okay. So you went into the store looking for a patient. Did you have any interaction with anybody? You said there were a number of people, 6 or 7 people. Did you have an interaction with any of those people?
Ma'am, do you mean did I speak with any? I'm not sure what you mean by interaction.
Yes. Did you have a conversation with any of those people?
As I was walking through, I heard what people were saying, and then, but I was pretty much looking for a patient. I might have spoken to someone who was working there briefly, and while I was looking around for a patient, essentially on the ground, I did encounter an off-duty firefighter, and then I briefly spoke with one of the police officers who was at the back of the store.
Okay, so let's just talk about those two things. So you interacted both with an off-duty firefighter and also a law enforcement officer who was present, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So let's first start with your objective. You said you were looking on the floor for a patient. Was it your primary goal to find a patient?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you were not able to see one easily and entered into the store, what did you do at that point? Was that when you talked to the law enforcement officer?
I made my way back toward the back of the store looking for a patient, or the call was confusing because we did not have a lot of information. So I did not have a patient description. I did not have anything else. And so I was essentially, yes, looking on the floor for someone. And at that point, though, the crowd that through which I walked was people were upset, and I was getting the sense from them that there was an injured person, and that's all so I was looking for someone on the ground.
Okay. Did you find an injured person on the ground?
No, ma'am.
So what did you do next?
My partner mostly stayed and spoke with the off-duty firefighter, who was agitated to distraught. I'm not somewhere between there. She was fairly upset, and as my job as supervisor is to kind of cut through a lot of the extraneous information and find what we actually need to deal with. And so I moved to the back, and I did see the police officer at the back of the store, which would have been the southeast corner of the building, talking to one of the employees behind the barricade, and then I approached him.
Okay. And then were you directed to another location?
Right as I was asking him what was going on, he said, I believe he said, the medics left, they need you. And right about simultaneously over his radio and over ours, because we have separate dispatchers, we both had the information that the paramedics needed us at a different location.
Okay. And then you also mentioned an off-duty firefighter. Do you know who that off-duty firefighter was?
Do I know who she is now?
Her name, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Genevieve Hansen.
At the time, did you have limited interaction with her?
I had worked, I'm sorry, if you're asking prior to that day?
Right, when you arrived on scene, did you immediately recognize her as somebody that you knew?
No, ma'am. I think I walked right past her, and then she popped up to my left once we were inside the store.
Okay, and then after the fact, do you now know that that was an individual that you know to work with as Genevieve Hansen?
Prior to that, once we started speaking, I did a double take, and I clocked that I knew her.
Okay.
And then we spoke.
And what information did you have at that point in terms of what was happening and what was going on?
The police officer said that the medics had left and they needed us, code 3. Dispatch said the same thing, and then from the off-duty firefighter and from the crowd, I was hearing and inferring that there was an injured man who had been sustained injuries in a scuffle with the police, or in a situation with the police.
Okay. I'm going to put up on the screen what's already been admitted as Exhibit 68. Can we put that up, please? Oh, here we go. All right, so you described your arrival. Could you just describe what's shown in Exhibit 68, please?
Yes, ma'am. That is our fire truck, engine 17. That is me stepping out from the captain's side. We are facing eastbound on 38th Street. Cup Foods is behind us. There is a squad to my forward and right from this photo to my left. And I believe that was the police officer I spoke to, whose body camera that was. So I was about to make contact with him.
So does this show you upon your initial arrival at the scene?
Yes, ma'am.
And if we could move to Exhibit 69, please. Did someone come off? So Exhibit 69 is now on the screen. If you could just describe who is pictured in this photo.
That is me to the right of the screen, and that is Firefighter Jennifer Hall to the left, coming around from her side of the rig. She was a rookie who started with us at the end of March.
And so were you both responding together, essentially?
Yes, ma'am. She was my partner.
Okay. Can we move to Exhibit 70, please? You described walking into the store and seeing some other individuals. Could you just describe what's shown in Exhibit 70, please?
Yes, ma'am. There's looks like a police squad ahead to my left, north on the street. I believe that is might be a park police squad to my left. 4 people outside, one of whom is off-duty firefighter Hansen. I did not recognize her walking through.
Do you recognize her now?
Affirmative.
Could you just, you can use the stylus or your finger, but it's a touchscreen. If you could just indicate where she is, please, in this photo. All right, you made a green mark above where, indicating Genevieve Hansen is. Can you just indicate where you are in this photo as well? All right, and there's an arrow showing where you've just made that mark. And then, could you identify Jennifer Hall as well, please? All right, did you know any of the other individuals in this?
In this photo, no, ma'am.
And if we could move to Exhibit 71, please. I'm sorry, 72, please. All right, so did you ultimately enter the store and have a brief interaction as you described with a law enforcement officer in there?
Yes, ma'am.
And does Exhibit 72 show that? I should be more clear. What does Exhibit 72 show?
I believe it would be the body camera of the officer with whom we were speaking.
And who's pictured in this image?
I'm on the center. I'm in the center, and Firefighter Hall is to the right.
And was this inside Cup Foods?
Yes, ma'am, towards the back of the store.
All right. And as you described, when you learned that there was no patient there, we'll go back to Exhibit 71, please. Now I've got Exhibit 71 on the screen. Did you then exit the store?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you just describe, is that what you were doing in Exhibit 71 here?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So once you had the additional information, we can take that down, thank you. What did you do next and where did you go?
We were directed to meet the medics at 36 on Park Avenue South. We got back on our fire truck and we responded to 36 and Park.
And what did you see when you got there?
The Hennepin County Medical Center ambulance was parked on the east side of the street, just south of 36.
And I'm going to put up Exhibit 74, which has already been admitted. Ultimately, can you just describe what point of view this is showing in Exhibit 74?
Yes, ma'am. That is not me, but this would be the view from my seat.
And so in the foreground, is that the fire truck that you were in?
I'm sorry, yes. This photo is taken from the front seat of the fire truck facing the ambulance.
And is that where your fire rig parked once you arrived at that location to meet up with the ambulance?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you do once you arrived at that location?
Again, my partner, Firefighter Hall, and I got out of the fire truck and we went into the ambulance, entering from the side door.
And what did you observe at that point in time?
2 paramedics and 1 police officer and a patient on the stretcher.
What appeared to be the condition of the patient that you observed?
He was face up on the stretcher. He had an airway an advanced airway, so he had a breathing tube going into his throat, and he had the Lucas compression device, which is a CPR, kind of a pneumatic CPR device, in place and working.
And when you say working, what does that mean?
It was pumping up and down to pump his chest, pump his heart.
Okay. And first of all, this patient, was he later identified by name?
Yes, ma'am, it's George Floyd.
So you said that he had an airway in place and the Lucas machine was pumping. What did you observe about his overall condition?
I mean, other than that, he was unresponsive.
Right. What, I mean, maybe not other than that, but what do you mean by unresponsive? What did you see?
A person who is not, who's, I'm sorry, it's a confusing question. I'm sorry.
Not a good question. I apologize. Just tell.
He was an unresponsive body on a cot. The airway was in place so that we could breathe for him, or so the responders could, or people could breathe for him, and the Lucas device was compressing his heart to get blood going through his body.
And when you say breathe for him, what does that mean?
I was not clear about that. And an airway device goes in through the throat, and basically gets better access into the lungs for some sort of an airway and oxygen delivery device. In our case, would be a bag valve mask, a BVM, which is like a Nerf football sized compressible bag that we squeeze every 6 seconds to bring air into their lungs, and it's oxygenated air.
So when you say breathe for him, does that imply using that BVM and actually squeezing it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, to your question, in the absence of those actions, the patient would have been pulseless and unresponsive, not breathing, and for all intents and purposes, dead.
Okay, and were you aware of the status with respect to any pulse that, was the patient pulseless when you arrived?
We did not check a pulse until we took over, they were working, we joined them. As part of their protocols, we did pulse checks multiple times from when we arrived until we arrived at the stay room at HCMC.
Did anyone ever find a pulse?
No, ma'am.
And when you first, just getting back to when you first got on this ambulance, you said you saw 2 paramedics. Was there a law enforcement officer who was also in the back of the ambulance?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you arrived, did you essentially switch places? Did he exit the ambulance?
Yes, ma'am. He was, I believe, on the bench seat. I cleared him out, took the seat at the head, and took over ventilations for the patient.
And when you say ventilations, are you talking about that BVM?
Yes, ma'am.
So were you squeezing it for
Yes, ma'am.
the process to work?
Yes.
Okay. After the officer left the ambulance and you were working on squeezing the BVM, what happened next? Did you proceed to the hospital with the paramedics?
I'm sorry, those are 2 questions.
Okay, let's start with the first one. And maybe I can just rephrase it better. What did you do after you took over the squeezing of the BVM?
I myself continued that until we were cleared at the stay room at Hennepin County Emergency.
Okay, so did you continue to do that, perform that act, all the way until you got to the hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you do once you arrived at the hospital with the patient, Mr. Floyd?
We continued from the ambulance into the stay room, which is their critical care room. I believe there were 2 other cases, patients already in there, so the room was a little hectic. They were still assembling their staff, so I continued at his head, breathing for him for short amount of time until their team took over and cleared us.
And once you were cleared, what does that mean, cleared?
Well, it's a hospital. They have a lot of people who can do our job, so they basically kick us out so they can take over the more comprehensive care.
What did you do at that point, once you were cleared?
How do you mean?
Did you ultimately need a ride?
We left the hospital, and I oftentimes when we were accompanied the medics down to the hospital on critical cases, our fire truck is not allowed to drive through lights just to follow us. Like, we'll be okay with the medics, and so they will respond, and depending on how far away it is, we can stand out on the street for several minutes. And additionally, I had radioed to my driver to go back to the scene at 30th in Chicago to check on the off-duty firefighter.
And why did you do that? Why did you have the other members of your team check on the off-duty firefighter?
Ma'am, well, once, as I said, we came in with very little information, and even when I spoke with her on the scene, I had no understanding of the cause of her distress. So once we got in the ambulance and I saw the severity of Mr. Floyd's condition and the gravity, I understood. I was able to infer or put together what she had been talking about, and I understood the justification of her duress, and so I sent my crew back to check on her to make sure she was okay.
So once you put those pieces together and understood Mr. Floyd's condition, were there additional actions that you took after leaving the hospital?
Yes, ma'am. Once the fire truck came to pick us up, we kind of had a brief, kind of a debrief in the rig, talking, because we had, my partner and I had a very different experience from my driver and the other firefighter, because especially during COVID, we were either going in one at a time, or because I had a rookie, I was trying to give her experience. So my senior firefighter and my driver remained on the rig for most calls from the end of March through midsummer. In this case, while my partner Jennifer Hall and I entered the rig and encountered someone who was not responsive, and it's just that way. The police officer.
Ask another question.
Oh, sorry.
Let's just back up for 1 second. You said that you and your partner Jennifer Hall
Yes.
were working together, and you got on the ambulance. What were the other members of your crew doing, and who were they?
Yes, ma'am. I apologize for that. Stephen Mudek is a rank firefighter, and Tracy Trebell is my driver, or fire motor operator.
So were all four of you together on May 25th
Yes,
of
ma'am.
last year? And I'm sorry, I just had to finish the question first so she can take it all down. But all four of you said, were together on May 25th responding to this call. Is that right?
Yes.
And who was it that you sent to go talk to the off-duty firefighter Genevieve Hansen?
I had FMO Trebell and firefighter Mudek take the rig back to the scene.
And when you say the scene, is that Cup Foods?
Yes, ma'am.
And where were you while that was going on?
We were in the ambulance at 36th and Park, and then we were en route to the hospital, and then they met us at the hospital.
And when you say they, ultimately did Tracy Trebell and Stephen Mudek from your team meet you at the hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you said that the four of you had a debrief, is that right?
Briefly, yes.
What did you do after that?
Sidebar, please. I have a new question.
Captain Norton, did you ultimately report this incident, what you saw and what you observed, internally to the fire department?
Yes, ma'am.
And why was that?
Twofold. I was aware that a man had been killed in police custody, and I wanted to notify my supervisors to notify the appropriate people above us in the city, both the fire department and whomever else. And then I also wanted to inform my deputy that there was an off-duty firefighter who was a witness of the scene.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Nelson.
Good afternoon, Captain Norton.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here. Just want to clarify a couple things on the time frame.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to show you what's already been admitted as Exhibit 151. You're familiar with the computer-aided dispatch or incident detail reports?
Yes, sir.
This is Exhibit 151 is a computer-aided dispatch report from this incident. This initial call for EMS code 2 occurred at 8:20 and 11 seconds, according to this. Agreed?
That's what it says.
And that was upgraded. This incident was upgraded at 8:28, correct? To code 3?
Well, sir, it says something different above.
So multi-agency police? You're talking about that?
No, sir.
Pardon?
No, sir.
So you've got 330 EMS code 3 at 8:21:35.
Yes, sir.
All right. And then you have some info for EMS at 8:27:21,
That is correct.
and that is that they had someone had a male restrained on the ground, correct?
Yes, sir. It says PDF male restrained.
Fire was E412, which is the emergency ambulance, added fire at 8:28. Agreed?
That's what it says.
EMS alerted everyone that they were at 36th and Park at 8:31 and 12 seconds.
Yes, sir. That's what it says.
Then there's this Metcom call at 8:33 where EMS is asking for a fire department for patient condition, right?
Yes, sir.
At down here at 8:35 and 13 seconds, it says Minneapolis Fire Department to en route to Park and 36th,
That's correct.
and you were 2 minutes out at 8:36 and 7 seconds,
That's what I reported, yes.
and so you arrived at about 8:38, correct?
I'm not sure what time we arrived.
Thereabouts, but within about 2 minutes as of your call.
I believe so, yes. I believe it was 8:37, but yes.
Okay. So the original call for EMS code 2 was 17 minutes prior to when you got to the ambulance.
Could you clarify, please?
The original call, EMS code 2 for mouth injury at 8:20.
That is not for us.
Understood. But it's 17 minutes after the original call went out, correct?
That looks appropriate, yes.
You were called, or fire, I should say, was called at 8:28 and 36 seconds.
That was somebody's radio transmission, yes, sir.
And the fire incident was created 7 seconds later at 8:28 and 43 seconds. So fire was notified at 8:28:43.
Our dispatch was, yes.
And what time did you arrive, based on your recollection, at Cup Foods?
Our station opened up at 20:30. We arrived at 20:32 and change.
Okay. So again, 12 minutes after the original call for service.
Yes,
All right. And when you arrived, paramedics had already removed Mr. Floyd from the scene and gone to 36th and Park, which is why you didn't find him at Cup Foods.
yes, sir.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Anything further?
Captain Norton, you were asked a series of questions about your response time and the timing of that. I think you testified on cross that the initial call you said regarding the code 2 mouth injury was not for us. Can you just describe what you were, what you mean by that?
Well, To the best of my understanding, the 911 system, which is many stories below us, there is a 911 dispatcher for civilian calls. There is a police dispatcher. There is a fire department dispatch, and there is an EMS or medics dispatcher. They are all in the same room. They are all in different channels. So if what I believe was a call from one of the police officers for EMS code 2 would have gone from that officer's radio directly to their dispatch. And then their dispatch would have made a decision based on information given, what level of EMS response to send.
So when you're responding to a call, this information isn't necessarily showing up for you on a screen somewhere while you're sitting in the station?
Ma'am, which information?
Exhibit 151 that was shown to you, the CAD report, that was something.
No ma'am, that is a kind of a more of an aggregate.
Okay, so just to be clear, what was the initial information that you received with respect to your firefighters in your fire station?
Yes ma'am, I believe it was code 2. I don't remember what the dispatcher said over the air, but it was something to the effect of either respond to help medics or code 2 to Cub Foods, and then what popped up on our screen was one with a mouth injury.
Okay, so when would you have received that information?
As soon as the station opened up and the run was generated onto our screen by the dispatch.
And when you said the station opened up and the run was generated, when would that have been?
8:30, 20:30, and 21 seconds.
So the information you received from your dispatch was approximately 8:30, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that would have been after information communicated from other sources to other dispatch, is that right?
I have no knowledge of that.
Fair enough. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Captain. Let me step down.